I understand Google's introducing a new Android phone next week. Is that correct?
Yeah, they've been teasing that, and that it obviously just doesn't get the attention that Apple or even Samsung gets, or even frankly Meta with its rollouts. But it'll be interesting to see. Google, its whole thing right now, Alphabet, is putting AI in everything, right? In search, in its hardware devices, even when you drive through a Wendy's. So perhaps this will be a phone that instead of just as a typical phone release talks about, look at the camera and the screen and all the features and the apps, maybe they're going to try to convince us that there's a ton of AI inside.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Friday, September 29th installment of the Silicon Insider, the only uncensored look at life and business in the Silicon Valley. My name is Mike Malone, and I'm here with special contributor Scott Budman of NBC Bay Area. Our producer is Jordan Henderson. Our East Coast correspondent is Bob Grove. And our host is the Silicon Valley Business Journal. Okay, Scott, so Meta Facebook, we thought they were going to spend this year patching things up. I think the phrase was the year of efficiency. Yes. And now they come out with essentially 3 new sets of products this week. It's a VR headset, right? Virtual reality headset, the Quest 3, smart, intelligent Ray-Ban sunglasses with built-in AI, and a bunch of added AI featured to its social apps. Obviously, Zuckerberg's going all in still on Meta, and but this is a very interesting collection of products. I mean, did we know they were working on hardware like this?
Yeah, they did. This is the 3rd generation of the Quest. This is sort of what, when Zuckerberg spent all that money on Oculus. The Ray-Bans are also sort of several generations in. I must say they look a lot better than the original kind of clunky glasses. And then AI is sort of the raison d'etre of Silicon Valley these days, and then certainly has to be part of that. And I saw the keynote; it was pretty impressive. I've got to say, Zuckerberg did a pretty good job. I don't know, and am therefore skeptical, especially about the Quest, what we want to put on our faces to either communicate or sort of teleport to another area. To me, and I've been in on this, testing them out since the very beginning, they've always made sense in a gamer way because you are immersed in this game, and that's pretty cool. But as far as going to meetings or talking or even watching movies or whatever, I don't know, maybe I'm just too old or too social or too skeptical, but we really haven't seen these become consumer products yet on any sort of level. So as impressive as the keynote was, I don't know how much they're moving the ball forward on this metaverse kind of thing.
Well, it's become kind of a meme too. I mean, gaming with VR glasses. If you go on like Fail Army or some of these sites that just show accidents and disasters and everything else, they're just chock full of people, often middle-aged men, trying on their VR glasses, forgetting where they are, losing their balance, crashing headfirst into the 60-inch monitor, knocking it off the wall and destroying it. I mean, there's thousands of these videos out there. I've yet to see one where people are really using them in an intelligent way and having a great time. It's always connected with this disaster in my mind.
I mean, each time I see someone using it, let's say they're working out, but okay, you've probably spent more than you would on a gym membership. So why do you have to do that virtually or having a meeting? Well, we all know about virtual meetings now, thanks to Zoom. I much prefer things in person. A concert, come on, there's no way to VR a concert. You got to go and see it live. So most of these things, again, besides gaming, I just question the experience and the quality of the experience. And I don't see a lot of young people doing this yet. And therefore, that's why I question it as a consumer product.
Yeah. Okay, well, it's now $499.
Right.
$500.
Look, it's been a great year for Meta. They're back to making profits. They're back to pleasing investors on a huge level. And I get that they want to move the platform away from, remember, initially your desktop and then your phone, and And this is another way to sort of have an Instagram or a Facebook is in the VR world, call it the metaverse or whatever. But again, I just, as successful as Instagram is, let's say, and people are just super, super into it, as well as other social media sites, I just don't see the young people spending $500 on a headset to interact. And so I don't know that this is the next platform, even though Zuckerberg seems convinced that it is. And he's smarter about this stuff than I am by leagues, obviously.
But I think in the last 30 years, we've developed alternative communications tools pretty well. I mean, how often do you need a situation where you're connecting with somebody through glasses? I mean, people are doing it. They're texting. They're going on Instagram. They're going on TikTok. They're, on and on. We're all on Zoom calls. Do we need it anymore? I mean, it was a clever thing in 2000, but is it now?
I agree with that skepticism. And everything you just mentioned, pretty much, we, especially young people, so people younger than us, do by showing themselves, right? And putting themselves in a good light or a funny light or a self-deprecating light, whatever it is, but they're not covering their face with something.
Yes. In fact, they're dolling themselves up.
Right.
I mean,
right.
If you
occasionally you'll see a Snapchat.
You're not going to put on one of these things. You're going to work on your eyebrows for 3 hours or something and 12 pounds of makeup.
Right.
Yeah. On the other hand, the Ray-Bans are an interesting idea because it what made me think of Tesla at the beginning. Tesla got smart because everybody was driving Priuses and all of these Hobbit cars that looked like toys and not particularly serious. And as mentioned in the Musk book, the early founders of Tesla said, "No, let's build something cool. Why don't we get a Lotus Esprit and come out with a Roadster?" And then the first real Tesla car comes out. They were actually cool. You actually wanted it to be seen in it, not to just for not having to pay for gas or being able to, talk about how great it is with electrical. You had a cool car. And it seems to me getting Ray-Ban Wayfarers in particular, the Buddy Holly glasses. I mean, the glasses that you see JFK at that baseball game wearing. I mean, it's the ultimate cool glasses. And to put AI in that's kind of intriguing. And it's $299, which is not a hell of a lot more. It's $100 more than you're going to pay for a pair of Wayfarers. It might be a very interesting idea. It might be a surprise seller for Meta.
It might. You're right. And I hadn't thought of this, but the Tesla example is a good one because you saw all those Priuses and it was like, okay, you're helping the environment in a sort of what became to be the eco-friendly look, but it wasn't sexy. You saw those Roadsters and it was like, oh, wow, people are helping the environment and looking sexy. That's kind of a new paradigm. And so if you can get AI in cool JFK style sunglasses, maybe you're onto something if still you feel the need to wear something to do technology. But you're right. If you do, those glasses are far less clunky and announcing themselves as the latest version of, the VR glasses or the VR headset, I guess.
Well, now my old age, if I could have those glasses and I can say in the middle of a conversation, go, "Hey, who's the lead singer from Metallica?" That I could, yeah, it might be very helpful for us senior citizens. Okay. This is interesting because we talked about this. It was a year and a half ago about the idea of of fusion and all the things that were starting to happen in that regard. And now, out of the blue, I mean, we were predicting, well, this might be interesting 10 years from now, 20 years from now, when it becomes a practical technology. But one of the world's biggest steel makers, Nucor, is now working on a power plant with a power plant maker, Helion. They're going to build the first fusion-powered 500 megawatt power plant to run a steel mill. Low carbon. I mean, you put carbon in the steel, but you don't have to put it in the air anymore if you've got a fusion power plant. I mean, it seems like these guys are leap. One of the rules is don't leap ahead of Moore's law. That's about as fast as you can go, just like the speed of light. Is this thing even practical? Is this thing going to happen, or are they just swinging for the fences to see if they could actually create green steel production?
I mean, I don't know because I'm just not smart enough to know. So I would say yes to both. Can it happen? Yes, maybe down the line. Are they swinging for the fences? Yes, they seem to be swinging for the fences. But, you brought up the others that we've seen recently with fusion and that, remember the floating magnet thing, whatever that was. I mean, these are all very incremental and yet exciting sort of moonshots. I have no idea if or when we will see them practically, like the people were talking about the maglev railroad or whatever. I just don't know. But it's exciting to see these things even in the headlights.
It would be a wonder of history if that happened. I mean, having seen as a child downtown Pittsburgh and driven through Gary, Indiana with those smokestacks and everything else, a green steel plant would be a miracle.
Right.
A lot of things.
I agree. And, it's steel. A lot of these climate books will call out concrete. These are things that are still very necessary in society and yet very much must change and get greener if we are to cut back on our emissions. So maybe it's sort of in that column, not just of things we want to do, but of things we need to do.
And maybe that's propelling the pace of creation even faster. Okay, I understand Google's introducing a new Android phone next week. Is that correct?
Yeah, they've been teasing that, and that it obviously just doesn't get the attention that Apple or even Samsung gets, or even frankly Meta with its rollouts. But it'll be interesting to see. Google, its whole thing right now, Alphabet, is putting AI in everything, right? In search, in its hardware devices, even when you drive through a Wendy's. So perhaps this will be a phone that instead of just as a typical phone release talks about, look at the camera and the screen and all the features and the apps, maybe they're going to try to convince us that there's a ton of AI inside. And remember, Apple sort of did that without calling it AI. Right. So maybe that's sort of the battleground now.
Google's announced this massive initiative on it. So you would hope it would show up in the phone.
But then again, how much do we want our phone learning? Aren't they already kind of smart enough to be spooky?
Yeah, well, they're smarter than our children. So, I mean, at that point, maybe you stop.
Right.
Okay. Lena Khan, we're in the midst of this FTC investigation. Now it's going to court against Amazon. And the FTC voted 3-0 this week to ask for an injunction in federal court. For practices that harm consumers. Now, Leah Khan, before she became head of the FTC, she wrote a big paper about how evil Amazon was for its monopolistic practices, predatory against its potential competitors. All of a sudden, she switched to the case of, no, the real problem with Amazon is it's harming consumers. Now, it kind of makes you wonder what her deep motives really are. I mean, maybe she's made her career on she's going to get Amazon one way or another, but it's hard to imagine most consumers thinking they're being harmed by Amazon. I mean, the prices get cheaper, deliveries get faster. It's the most efficient thing in my life. I mean, it's more efficient than ordering food for delivery. I mean, the books arrive, everything arrives right when you want them. It's kind of amazing. I don't like Amazon. I don't like the way they treat their people, but by God, I kind of like the service still. I'm not sure that it's causing harm to consumers out there.
Well, but it might be doing it illegally, partially, and we'll address the employees in a minute. But first, if they're causing other companies to go out of business because they are so dominant, that ultimately hurts the consumer. If you have to pay more and more to be an Amazon Prime, and then because you're an Amazon Prime, yes, the shipping is faster, but they're going to direct you to Amazon products instead of competitors, that harms the consumer. And then let's get to the workers. I too like getting my shampoo really quickly. If I find out that it is making drivers pee into cups because Amazon is treating them that crappily.
Yeah, break time. Yeah.
Right. I'm not appreciating the discount or whatever I'm getting on shampoo. It's just it plays on the conscience. So are they breaking the rules and breaking the law, I think is the case here. And Lena Khan did show that in her earlier papers and is now, sort of placing her career on this, I think. But Amazon is just so gigantic, and there seems to be so much evidence of them being predatory, at least to potential competitors, that there is something here. We just don't know exactly what it is. And so I'm looking at this day to day as some of this stuff comes out, and it is kind of fascinating. It doesn't quite make me wish I went to law school, but it makes me wish I were smarter in that kind of stuff, because it's fascinating in looking at, like you say, a company that literally changed the way not only business does business, but we as consumers consume.
Could you build a competitor to Amazon right now?
That's a great question. And I think the answer is no. And isn't that wrong? Shouldn't you be able to, because it helps consumers?
Well, yeah, but they should have done this 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Amazon is now so in place in the ecosystem of American economy that I'm not sure you could build an effective competitor to them. I will say there are certain things that, like we talked about last week. How the hell did I get on Amazon Prime? I was suddenly there and I'm being billed for it. And that's been brought up. And we know about the treatment of the employees. But, if you want to talk about predatory behavior on other companies, I mean, Walmart, what they have essentially did was you had to go into a giant warehouse and sit in a plastic chair and pitch your product to be sold at Walmart, and they made you take half of what you were asking for. I mean, in terms of that, I mean, it seems to me you still got to go through Amazon. It's pretty hard not to anymore, but I don't see them really screwing over suppliers, people feeding, manufacturers feeding into that distribution chain.
I don't know, only because I'm not watching that very closely, but that's something I'm looking for in this case. And you bring up Walmart, which was Amazon before Amazon. I mean, it was just in the physical world, the brick and mortar world, and it was seen as wow, they've changed everything. It's a superstore. It's so convenient.
Downtown in America. Yeah,
exactly. But try to compete against Walmart. And that was just nearly impossible. And the founders, that Walton family, got phenomenally wealthy, just like, Jeff Bezos and early shareholders at Amazon. And yeah, I mean, props to them. They did it. They succeeded. They changed the way we shop. And in the case of Amazon, still changing the way we shop. But you don't know necessarily that a company is monopolistic until it is. And so, yeah, you can look back and say, we should have done this earlier, but at least we're looking closely at it now. And I think the consumer deserves that. And I think potential competitors deserve that as well.
Well, I mean, there's the Bill Gates argument, which is, yeah, we're on top now, but nobody's on top for that long. And he was right in terms of Microsoft. And the Walmart argument was, yeah, they're taking over the world. Oops, now we're scrambling to survive against Amazon.
Right.
As long as we have technological innovation, nobody stays on top forever.
Right, which is actually Google's, Google's argument right now in antitrust, saying, oh, no, there's so much competition out there. Well, good luck building a competitor to Google, but they do have that sort of fallback to say, but I can search here and there and there, and yeah, technically you can, but Google is just so gigantic, and that's what needs to be, I guess, litigated right now.
On his asked for an injunction, which suggests one of two things: either Amazon's going to have to agree to a whole bunch of procedural changes, or they're going to bust it up.
And there is this wing, call it, say the Elizabeth Warren wing, that wants to bust up some of these gigantic tech companies. And if time was ever right for that, why not look into it now? I'm not advocating breaking these things up, but I understand why this is what some politicians see as a solution.
10 years ago, I would have thought that was an absurd notion, but given the behavior of a lot of these firms over the last decade and their sheer size, I'm kind of warming up to antitrust.
Well, we're seeing two things. We're seeing antitrust and the rise of unions, even in tech. And we're also seeing politicians at the same time saying, break these companies up. That can't be a coincidence.
No, it's all going to converge. Just when. Speaking of when, I mean, I've been talking about China and how it seems to be crashing in every area. And we just had their big real estate firm suspend trading today, I believe it was, or yesterday. Well, now a number of China's ByteDance executives are transferring to top level of positions at TikTok, which is raising a lot of concerns because a lot of these guys at ByteDance were definitely CCP party members, and now they're leaving China. So a lot of them moving to the United States and running TikTok just when we're concerned about China's influence here. Now, it seems to me there's two scenarios here. One of them is the Chinese party wants more control over TikTok and has a great listing post in the U.S. and wants guys that are working for the party here, not guys who are getting Americanized. The other possibility is everybody that's rich in China is trying to get out. In fact, I think it was the top 8 AI companies in China, 6 of them, the CEO or a board member has just gotten divorced in such a way that their assets have been divided up with their wives, many of whom are moving to America. And the government's talking about not allowing people at senior levels in companies to divorce because it's not a real divorce, it's a economic divorce. So money's trying to get out of China right now because they see the future. So it's a real question in my mind are these ByteDance executives, following the orders of the party, or are they just trying to not follow the orders of the party and get their money out and get it into the States?
I don't know. And whether or not ByteDance executives are really divorcing, I don't think affects our future on the social media. I think what does is what you said earlier, is the Chinese government trying to get more control or keep control over ByteDance and therefore TikTok. And that is the big issue right now. It's the multi-trillion-dollar issue that I've spoke of before, because if they're going to unlock all that value, let's say on the US stock market, they have to find a way to separate ByteDance and TikTok, the Chinese government and TikTok. And I understand why ByteDance, a Chinese-run company, doesn't want to relinquish that power, that advertising revenue. But for the American side of it, it's a security risk, period. Just at the Code conference, the Kara Swisher interviewing Yoel Roth, who was the head of safety at Twitter before Elon Musk bumped him from his position. And he said the strongest social media network right now is TikTok. The one that protects from disinformation the most is TikTok. But by the way, I don't allow TikTok in my home because this is the guy that is like the head of security at was the head of security at a major social network. And so TikTok is a huge success in so many ways. And yet people are nervous about the security and how they're listening and what they're tracking. And that's just a recipe for people to eventually move on. And TikTok has a window. I don't know how big that window is to unlock that value and all that equity. But it has to become a trusted social network, which I realize these days might be an oxymoron, but at least a more trusted social network than what it is right now.
Well, why, with all the things going on and all the reaction in Congress and everything else, would they suddenly play this game of executive musical chairs? What would motivate them to do that right now? Are they that tone deaf, or are they desperate, or there is some other reason?
I don't know. Like you say, there are big economic shakeups going on as a whole in China, even if ByteDance is doing well and TikTok is doing well. Look, if you're talking about fake divorces or whatever, how are we going to ever know that? I think what we need to focus on is, are the young people in America getting misinformation on TikTok? Are they being tracked on TikTok? Is this something we need to worry about? Or can this someday be a company that becomes a huge employer and wealth generator and, positive social media force in America? Right now, it's kind of at a crossroads, I think.
How did the markets close today, by the way? It's not been a good week. It's not been a good couple of weeks for tech.
No, it hasn't. But I think today was a good day. Let me check. As we speak, Dow up about 115, NASDAQ up about 100. But this month, September, was, I think, the worst month of the year for those stocks. A lot of the big tech stocks giving up some of their recent gains and, earnings, even though good still shook some investors out. So yeah, rough month.
With gas prices as insane as they are, and what they're like, what are they at now in the valley?
So Silicon Valley is looking
on
at
the coast of Oregon, getting away from all the craziness, but you're still in it.
Yeah, down here we're swimming in gas prices that are absolutely shockingly high, like we haven't seen since mid 2022. And the interesting thing is, as we here in the Bay Area start to see $7 gas prices, and we are both in the South Bay and in the North Bay, $7 a gallon. The national average has not moved up nearly as much. So the gap between the national average and California is wider than we've seen in a long time. And so Governor Newsom screaming at the oil companies claiming they're being overtaxed and feed and all that stuff. But interestingly, it's not just Governor Newsom yelling at the oil companies, it's the Republicans. So we just talked about TikTok, which for years I've been saying is the one thing in this world that unites both sides of the aisle. We now found a second thing. High gas prices in California. Both Republicans and Democrats are super, super pissed off.
So just when companies are making their employees come back to work, damn it, finally, they got to pay $7 a gallon to commute in heavy traffic. Does this kind of send people back home? I mean, if companies were benevolent, they'd say, just save your gas money, call in.
Yes, because for the first several months or even the first year of the back to the office movement, companies had to admit, sorry, now you're going to sit in traffic. Now they have to say, sorry, you're going to sit in traffic while paying $7 a gallon for gas. And so we're either going to see some of those stock options used to buy some EVs real quick, or you're right, a pushback saying it's costing me too much money now to commute again. It's yet another high cost here in the Golden State.
And housing prices, though, are beginning to come back.
Yeah, they're still high too.
The index is starting to climb again.
Yeah, they're still high too. And as people come back to work and feel the need to get back to Silicon Valley, rents are up again. And so it's back to high prices pretty much all around right now.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, that's it for now, folks. You can find us on the Silicon Valley Business Journal homepage, as well as on Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. We want to wish one of our friends, Ed Clendaniel, the longtime editorial page editor of the San Jose Mercury News, a happy retirement. And for all of you, of our listeners around the world, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.